Hi, I'm Dr. Ben Newman, and I'm a coronavirus expert, and I'm here to try to answer your questions. Yeah, it's a really nice day out there. I don't know how it is where you are. They've got the fountain running on the little lake, and there are all kinds of little tiny frogs, and they're actual, honest to goodness, lily pads that they're kind of sitting on. It's really something else. At the place where I'm working and where I'm sitting right now, there are also some ostriches that you can see parading back and forth next door, and sometimes they have a zebra in there. Yeah, so here we go. All right, so for the first question of today, let's find it. Here we are. All right, so this question is from Gina, and how you doing, Gina? Yeah. Let's see. First question. Oh my gosh, that's great. And first time you submitted a question. That's nice. Let's see. I'm dismayed by my close family members refusing to the vaccine. Okay, even though they're eligible, they don't like vaccines in general. To which I would say, who likes, who enjoys needles? Somebody somewhere, but not me, not anybody. Yeah, but that's not why we do it, of course, right? Yeah. Okay. How can I reason with them on the danger or implications of not getting vaccinated? Thanks. Have a great day. Yeah, well, I think you hit on the right point. It's probably got to be you because other people telling them, yeah, a lot of people that aren't getting the vaccine are saying that it's an issue of trust. If they just had somebody that was close to them and wanted them to get it or was explaining what's going on, then they, might be more likely. But they don't trust who's giving it. They don't know the people, stuff like that. So yeah, that makes sense. Um, yeah, there are a couple ways you could try to address this. I'll tell you why why I'm glad I got it and would totally get it again, and will get a booster as soon as they make a booster available for me. Um, so over the past few weeks, we've been sequencing variants, just sequencing any positive case, and these are all from asymptomatic people, so people that don't think they're ill or are not very sick. Yeah, anybody that's properly sick is getting tested in the hospital, not with us. Anyway, what we found is that 70% of the viruses that we are picking up are what we would call variants of concern. And so these are the bad ones. Mostly it's this thing that they call the B117 or sometimes UK variant. And then there's a bunch of other little minor ones. But yeah, so mostly I think when people are making the calculation, they're thinking, all right, if I go out there, I'm only going to get like the regular strain. Yeah, odds are very much in favor that you're going to get one of the variants now. And what we know about some of these variants is that they are harder to block, even with a vaccine. Although the vaccine will protect you, but the virus may be able to grow a little bit and spread a little bit before that. Yeah, so that's the risk there. We know they grow to higher levels inside people, and we're not sure if they cause more damage. That's kind of a tough thing to be certain about because even within one of these strains, you will have lots of little versions of that thing. And so within the UK strain, you can have somewhere between 16 and I think we're up to around 70 mutations and still be, UK variant, even though they're all different, scattered across the board. So, yeah. Um, Basically, I guess if we're talking about the trust issue, I would say I trust the virus less. So I used to work with chickens, and the nice thing is that you can count on a chicken to act in its own self-interest because they have a brain. They're hungry, they'll eat, they're frightened, they'll do whatever. But yeah, they're somewhat reasonable creatures. Yeah, even though yeah, having had chickens in our house, I think they're really on the low end of the spectrum there. Yeah. Um, but the virus changes randomly. And while we might say, well, it's in the virus's best interest if it gets milder and just sticks around with people, I think 10,000 years from now in the future, that may be the case if we really mess up here and this becomes a permanent thing. But honestly, right now in the short term, no. All the virus has been doing is changing in a way that makes it harder to vaccinate. And part of that is the vaccine's fault. So the vaccines are all based on a particular very early version, which is the only thing we had when they started the vaccine process. And the virus has now kind of moved on. Yeah, it's grown. Yeah, yeah, literally, that's what they do. So I really don't trust the virus to do anything other than be random and chaotic. We know there are more variants out there every day, and what we're trying to do is we're trying to carry out a scorched earth campaign. This may resonate with some people you're talking to, which is like in a war where you go in and burn up all the crops and all the villages or whatever, just so that the opposing army can't eat anything, can't stay anywhere, just has nothing, absolutely nothing except what they brought with it. When you do that to viruses, they die out. So the virus can only change. It can only make new variants when it's inside of a person. And yeah, you stop infections, you stop it from changing. We know that eventually this virus is going to change enough that the original vaccines aren't going to work at all. That's what every virus does. That's just how they work. And if it does that, or when that happens, there is definitely going to be a lag, because even with as fast as we can get new vaccines out, yeah, it's going to take a while to get everything tested and approved and ready. And yeah, also, I would say you can look at Israel. So instead of talking about it, they just went and did it. Yeah, they have got, I believe, over 60% of everybody, adults, children, everybody, vaccinated at the moment with 2 doses. And their COVID numbers are amazing. They've gone from having a huge COVID problem to just a handful of cases a day, and most of the time there are no deaths on a day. Fantastic. That's what living with this thing looks like. And if we can actually do that, the virus will just die out and it'll go away. It's really the only way out. Yeah. And I think eventually people are going to start requiring this. So it's something that's happened before in America, in smallpox and in polio outbreaks. There were times when, yeah, you were required to get a vaccine in order to do certain things. Or with smallpox, they actually required you to get a vaccine, or you'd have to pay a fine. At least in Massachusetts and some other states. And yeah, it worked. We drove smallpox to extinction. Polio, there haven't been live polio cases in the US in a long time, and they are almost gone in the world. I think we finally had a year without any sort of natural polio circulating last year. And so just a little bit of leftover sort of vaccine derived stuff where something weird happened. And even that's just tiny amounts. It's basically, yeah, basically done. If they're worried about, oh my gosh, we could go on forever. If they're worried about all that other stuff, that it'll change your DNA or nonsense like that, this the mRNA vaccines are the one to go with, because they are literally gone from your body. They're made of a really fragile substance that breaks down and gets recycled super fast. It just turns into nucleotides. The half-life for those vaccines inside of a human body is less than a day. And half-life means that half of it literally has broken down. I think it was about 20 hours in the mouse experiments that I'm thinking of. And so you would expect every last trace of the thing to be gone within a week. There's no way it can turn into DNA, can change your DNA, can do any of this other nonsense people are talking about. But yeah, maybe though the actual answer is you gotta tell them you care about them, and you gotta talk to them about what their fears are. And if you, I don't know, if you've been watching the channel for a while, there's probably a lot of good stuff on here that you can use to answer their questions, because pretty much everything that people are worried about or scared about or hesitant about, people have done the experiments on this and found that it doesn't exist, that it's not a problem, that it's nothing. So with that in mind, yeah, it's really just a case of yeah, talking to them, listening to them, and then getting them to change their mind. And I wish you a lot of luck in that. I think the recipe is going to be different for every single person, and I wish there was an easier way. But you're doing the right thing, and thank you. All right, that's all. This has been Ask Dr. Ben.